everyone, and welcome back to the Live Debt Free YouTube channel, where we discuss everything about managing your finances well so you can be ultimately financially free. Today I'm taking over Julian's YouTube channel to discuss a very important topic. We all know how the global pandemic has affected everyone in the world, and that's why we thought it would be a good idea to discuss what to do to survive a job loss. We're going to take the video in two parts. Part one will be more about the emotional side of how you feel after you've lost a job, and then part two will give you some practical tips on the next step as soon as this happens. Julian and I have experienced this before, and so we just thought we'd share our story about how that impacted us as a family. Thank you for joining us, Julian, and could you talk a little bit about what happened to you and how that affected you personally?
Thanks so much for having me on my own channel. It's very exciting. But no, it's a very good topic, and it's one that Arita chose, and I think it's good to discuss these things because oftentimes we don't discuss what we go through, and we all go through these things, so I think it's quite healthy that we do discuss this. My first job loss, and only not first and only job loss which I've experienced, happened about 7 maybe 5 years ago. I think it's about five or 6 years ago, guys. We're not sure, but it's around that time. And as with everything, of course, it's fine to initially go through the disappointment of the job loss itself. So let's look at some of the emotional things which you first experience. So initially, I did experience disappointment. I then also felt a bit of panic as to what's next. I also felt sort of anxiety in terms of provision and where's our money going to come from now in terms of ensuring the lifestyles and the choices which we've made. So that's all the sort of emotional things initially I sort of went through.
Right. And I was thinking as well, at the time you had spent about 8 years with that company, or 9 years, I forget. And I can imagine that there's a sense of betrayal as well, because you do dedicate yourself to your job. We spend so much time at work, right?
Yeah.
And so you could feel a little bit, well, they just let me go on a whim. That's just some of the things that we could be dealing with.
Yeah.
And how did you manage to pick yourself up to move forward from that point on?
Look, the great thing which we did, and I'll just go through the various points which I've mentioned, and then perhaps my response at a later stage and how best to view it. It was good that we could discuss this as a family, and the greatest thing was having the support of my wife. And Arita was very supportive in terms of ensuring me that, hey, it's okay. Don't take this personally. It's not a personal attack on anyone. And Arita's and I have been in several positions now whereby we also have to make some tough decisions in terms of letting people go. So it's seeing things from the other side. And most times it's just a business decision, especially for larger companies. Right. So it was looking at it and going, hey, it's not about me. So don't make it about yourself. It's not about you most of the time, guys. Depends on how much effort you're putting in the office. But most of the time, it's not about you or being inadequate or not sufficient in your role. So yeah, don't take it personally.
Yeah, I think especially now, since it's affecting everyone globally, it's a little bit easier to try and make that distinction and say, look, this is not really my fault. This is a global financial situation that has resulted in this. And I think one of we're hearing some tragic stories about people really making very, very final decisions as a result of the pressure that comes from this. And I think it's important to reiterate that this is temporary, guys.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think with any loss in terms of jobs or career, that's a very good point. You have to always remember that it's not forever, and that there are plenty more jobs out there, and one will come if and when it is your time to find that particular job. So after dealing with the emotional side of things, it was good that Orita also supported me in terms of ensuring me that, you know, it's okay and we're in this together,
right,
and we're in this as a family. And the great thing was, because we've always, not always, the later part of our marriage have been quite good with our finances, so we did prepare for a situation like this, which is quite key, which is why we stress in Live Debt Free and with all our resources and material and communication, is that always prepare for emergencies. So always prepare for the worst case scenario in terms of your finances, like a job loss. So the emergency fund is quite key. It's having those 3 months worth of savings just to cover yourself in case of these things, because statistically it's been shown that, you know, it takes about 3 months on average at the longest time to find another means of employment.
Right, if you're diligent about it.
Yeah.
I think that the reason why, or I just wanted to emphasize the reason why we even started this channel and started to want to inform people about what we've learned, is that experience for me where we did have almost the worst thing happen to us financially when it comes to career, and we were able to get through that because we had put in place these measures that we teach and that we want to share with everyone right now.
Absolutely.
So I think in closing on this part of the segment, I think one of the other points I wanted to make is the thing about identity in your job.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to talk about it because I don't want to generalize, but traditionally the man has more of his identity wrapped up in what he does for a living. So they say when men get together, they ask, what do you do? And when women get together, they ask other questions about how many kids you have, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, so can you talk a little bit about identity and your work and how this situation
I think it was a good thing whereby I didn't see myself as the position that I was in. So, you know, for me, having that job and having done it for several years, and although I enjoyed it, it wasn't who I was. And I think that is key. And it's such a good point for a lot of people, because you have to remember that, you know, doing a job, whatever your reasons for doing it, you have to remember that it is not you, it is not who you are, for most part, in terms of the most commercial entities, etc. And it's a very key point where you have to actually disassociate yourself from your career. So, and it's harder when everything is your career, i.e. you're putting it before your family, your friends, everything else. Then it would affect you a lot more, because then to you that would be almost a loss of everything that you have, which is why we always emphasize it's good to have a balanced life in terms of work, career and family, whereby a career should not be, and this is just our opinion, should not be the be-all and end-all of everything. It's a means to an end, and it's great if you enjoy what you do. But yeah, have a really balanced life, and don't wrap your identity in your position.
Right. Yeah. So just closing this part of the discussion, I just wanted to say that just remember, one, it's temporary, and two, you have so much worth, as a human being, and there will be another job, even if it doesn't seem so right now. If you work at it, this situation is temporary.
Absolutely.
Okay. So next, I thought we could go through some advice or tips on you lost your job, what now? What's the first thing that you can practically do?
Yeah.
And step number 1 is...
I forgot the notes.
Know where you are.
Yes. Absolutely. Very good point. So step number 1 is if you haven't been doing this, and if you haven't been budgeting, and you haven't been keeping track of your finances, there's a brilliant time to actually sit down and go through line by line and to determine where you are exactly financially.
Right.
This is just if you don't know, because you would need to know exactly if you have any debt, how much you owe, what are the payments, what's outstanding, and how long you have, because it's going to give you a time frame of your current resources and income that you do have, how long of a period you have to make that last. Right. In terms of where you are at.
Yeah, you literally need to become the CEO of your own finances. Yeah. You talked earlier about panicking and anxiety. I know, like, I've been there where my credit card bill is so high, and I have gone to Julie and said it's again huge, and I've been afraid to look at the statement because I know I've been out of control in the past, right? And I promise you that anxiety is going to be for a little bit, but when you have everything in front of you, you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's better to, as the saying goes, better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Right. So step number 1 is just know everything about where you are.
Yeah.
Step number 2, I would say, is trim down your lifestyle. Look at all the areas where you can make changes.
Yeah, and that's quite key. We've discussed with quite a few people that we've counseled and that have experienced job losses or salary cuts, but yet they want to maintain this sort of same lifestyle, which doesn't make any mathematical sense, let alone any other sorts of sense. And I hope I'm not being too harsh, but it's basically this: if you've got a change in your income, you need to adjust your lifestyle according to your new income or no income. And that's just a healthy way of doing things. So if it means moving to a smaller house, if it means maybe selling one of your 2 cars and renting a car, it's making these big decisions, but it's making changes to adapt to your new environment.
Right. So this is a very, very difficult thing to do for a lot of people. But the benefit is that most of us, hopefully, the companies give some sort of settlement when you leave. It will help.
But don't rely on that.
Right. But it does help you to stretch what you have when you don't have an income coming in, right?
Exactly.
How much time you're giving yourself to be able to find that next career.
Absolutely.
So adjust your lifestyle. If you can, I would say try and keep up with your minimum debt repayment so that you don't have any interest coming in. I know we live in the UAE, and a lot of banks have come forward in the papers and said, look, we have a helpline, we're giving a month payment holiday or 2 months.
Yeah.
Do your research, see what is available to you in terms of what you can do to help you get through this very, very difficult time. But you're going to have to make changes.
Make some hard changes. And remember, like Arita said, it's temporary. It's not changes forever. It's just adjusting to the climate and the season that you're in right now. If it's hot, you're going to wear a t-shirt. If it's cold, you put on a jacket. Same thing with your finances and your job.
Right. It's just adjusting to the times. Okay, the next thing is if it is your desire, I don't know, you might be reevaluating your life choices at this point, but make finding a job your full-time job.
Absolutely.
I truly believe there are some opportunities out there. There has to be. There's certain industries like essential services that are hiring. I would say think creatively about not just what is your specific industry and your niche, but what skill set you
What skill set you have, what else you can do. And, you know, with the ever increasing sort of assistance, I'm just speaking about the UAE where we're living right now, you can also do freelance work currently. So think outside the box and think about what you can do to generate some form of revenue while you are searching for your next dream job or next career move. Someone that we've counseled previously were so dedicated and creative, they got a free time job walking dogs in the neighborhood. So amazing. It's amazing what you can discover when you truly put your mind to it.
Right. And what we keep mentioning our counseling, but it was such a great learning ground for us. What I found as well, like people were reluctant to go to sort of what they perceived as lower levels or a lower salary.
Yeah.
And in that sense as well, I would say, have humility, you know.
A lower salary is better than no salary.
That's true.
Just think of it that way.
Yeah.
And it's not permanent, it's temporary.
So I would say keep your heart and your mind open and be open to exploring things that do come your way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
the next one, the final one, I think, is you know, we like we said, we live in the UAE, and this is a very, very expatriate environment. And something that I love when Julian counsels people who've been out of a job for 4 months or 6 months or even a year, we've spoken to people like that, and you always said, give yourself a time limit.
yes.
We love the UAE. This is our home. It's where we hope to be for a very, very long time. But it's also expensive to live here without money. Yes, you can. There are ranges of income levels in the city, and you can scale back big time if you're able to do that, or willing to do that, I should say. But give yourself time. Okay, can you talk a little bit about that and how you came up with that? Why you say that?
Yeah, because if you don't give yourself a time frame, you are literally just going to be creating debt. So it's just being realistic with the resources that you have, and then to make even bigger decisions. So firstly, you make those smaller life decisions when you lose your job or an income to adjust. But then also when you see things aren't happening, give yourself a time frame to be in a position financially that's healthy. Because if you don't say, okay, we only have enough capital and resources for 5 months, and then if we don't have anything by those 5 months, what are we going to do? Because in all honesty, if you don't have any money coming in and you only have expenses incurring over 5 months, you are gonna go into debt by month 5 because you have no other choice. So some really hard decisions have been, should we stay in the UAE still? And I've mentioned this on my social media post the other day. Ask yourself why you are here. And we all have different reasons for being here, but make sure that your why is still relevant. So if you are here and you are causing yourself to live a substandard life and lower quality of life, and you have no income, don't put yourself in a position to ruin the rest of your life.
Right.
Because is it really worth it staying here if that's going to be the result? So it's just thinking about that very carefully.
Yeah, and you know, the UAE, or the country where you're an expatriate or that you love to be in, it's not going anywhere. So we're not saying that you permanently leave, right?
Yeah.
It's just leave on a good note. Leave with your accounts up to date, everything tied up nicely, which means when you're back home, you can apply to come back if you really love being here. So it's, again, going back to, this is temporary, guys. This is not a permanent thing. And just keeping that at the forefront of your mind. Yeah. And my last thing is ask for help. Speak to people. Don't I know depression is something that is real and that can really be amplified in this situation. So reach out to your family, your friends, your support system, and keep talking to people. Ask for help. Reach out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it for this video, guys. I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. You can reach us on our social media, which is livedebtfree.me, or our website is www.livedebtfree.me. Yeah.
And keep subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on anything. And if you don't like watching stuff, then we've got podcasts.
Yes, we do.
So yeah. Other than that, thanks so much. Keep well, stay tuned, stay safe, and make that change.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.